Good evening. This week, Emurua Dikil, Member of Parliament Johana Ngeno, was arrested on charges of hate speech 2 years to the next general election. Kapsaret MP Oscar Sudi has also been asked to apologize over his sentiments about the First Family. In the run-up to the last general elections, more than 8 MPs were questioned over remarks that they were considered as hate speech. But what happened to their respective cases? Will we ever see any prosecution and conviction of a sentiment deemed hate speech? Tonight, we speak to NCIC Commissioner Dr. Danvas Magori. We also have in studio former Deputy Speaker and Lagdera MP Farah Maalim. And finally, I'm joined by CEO of Young Parliamentarians Association, Anthony Buluma, to discuss this and so much more. Welcome to Tipping Point. My name is Frederick Mutiriri, and tonight I'm asking, will the arrest of politicians help curb hate speech? Will the arrest of politicians help curb hate speech? Talk to us on 22999, 22999. Comment on Facebook and on Twitter. Of course, we are on YouTube live at Switch TV Kenya. We start off on what happened the last few days. This is what Johana Ngeno said.
Unaweza peleka venye unataka. Hapana, this is our land. Na kama unataka kufunga sisi, funga sisi. Kama unataka kupiga sisi risasi, piga sisi risasi. Baba yako alipiga watu wangapi risasi? Na Kenya inaendelea.
All right, that is Johana Ngeno, Emurua Dikil, Member of Parliament. And of course, this has started a very heated debate in the country. And right now in studio, I'm joined by former Lagdera MP, former Deputy Speaker, Farah Maalim. Karibu sana to our studios. We have the CEO of Young Parliamentarians Association, none other than Anthony Buluma. Karibu sana to our studios. And let me start with you, Farah. You have seen what has happened this week. You're a former MP. Yeah. What do you make of the happenings of this week?
Well, I frankly am a bit lost on what exactly is hate speech. If we go strictly by the definition of hate, hate speech is any expression, utterances that are designed to vilify, to, basically to humiliate, to create an acrimony towards a section of the society. That section is through race or religion or gender, or these days they've also brought into the sexuality, they call it. I'm talking about gays, lesbians, and the rest of them. And it's essentially something that's designed to incite people against a section of the society. And the incitement invariably in most cases is for purposes such as violence. You have to understand that these things, the history of this thing emanates from, and this is in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights itself. Yes. It emanates from the anti-Semitism of the first 3 decades of the last century, that culminated in the Holocaust. So I want us to be very specific on exactly what is hate speech. For example, if I come out there and say that don't buy this oil or that kind of a car, is that a hate speech? And with a reason or something like that? I think there is need to be able to define this more strictly, and I'm glad we are here with somebody who comes from the body that essentially is supposed to deal with that. So I'm a bit at a loss in what exactly is hate speech.
Maybe we can be joined in by NCIC Commissioner who is on tele. Dr. Danvas Magori, you can help us here. As NCIC, what do you consider as hate speech? Nipe sauti ya fallback.
Can you hear me? I think the general description was as given as is to an extent accurate. Let me just say this. and I'm going to quote, because the hate speech actually is in our act. NCAC Act defines hate speech. We must remember NCAC came into fruition after the 07-08 violence which we saw. In Agenda 4, which we are an Agenda 4 Commission to address long-term issues. And one of the things that we really deal with and we are known for is this. So Mheshimiwa Songeno was charged by the DPP on NCAC Act. So what does our act say? It's very clear what it says. So to answer Mheshimiwa's question, I'm going to read it so that everybody can understand what hate speech is. A person who uses threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior, or displays any written material, publishes or distributes written material, presents or directs the public performance of play, distributes, shows or plays a recording or visual images, or provides, produces, directs a program which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, or involves the use of threatening, abusive, or insulting words or behavior, commits an offense if such a person intends thereby to stir ethnic hatred, or having in regard to all circumstances ethnic hatred is likely to be stirred. Any person who commits offense under this section shall be liable to fine not exceeding 1 million shillings or an imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years or both. I think it's very clear. The law is very, very clear when it comes to exactly what hate speech is about.
Do you consider what Johana Ngeno said as hate speech?
No, it's not whether the law. That's what the law considers is hate speech. Because why? Because on the act says, this is what it says. It says, or having in regards to all circumstances, ethnic hatred is likely to be stirred up. So there's intent in law. There's something called intent. So if you have intent, then you can be charged. But even when you say things that is likely to stir ethnic hatred, and it's very clear, if you use threatening, abusive, insulting words, were his words threatening? Yes. Were his words abusive? Yes. Were his words insulting? Yes. So clearly the law says whatever he said was hate speech.
Farah doesn't seem to agree with you.
Can I just butt in on that? Mm-hmm. You see, what you have to understand is that every time there's a piece of legislation,
yes,
that legislation came about as a result of a certain necessity. So this act itself came about as a result of the ethnic clashes that we experienced in the post-election violence of 2007. And specifically ethnic clashes, violence towards some people. Look, I have no time for William Ruto as a person myself. And to be honest with you, I see him as somebody who has very powerful dictatorial tendencies that is going to be very bad for these countries. And this is my own opinion, and I don't want to force it on anybody else.
And he's not here to defend himself.
And he's not here to defend himself. And yes. and basically what's happening right now is political games that essentially different political centers do play. And politics is a game that has very little rules. But I don't want us to get into a situation in which the law itself is used for political purposes. It says ethnic violence. Now, I stand to be corrected if you want to tell me that there are connotations that incited ethnic violence. Abusive is if it's an abusive towards an individual or a family or an organization, that organization can always go to court and seek redress through defamation. We've got very good defamation laws. If you can't prove those things, then of course that person is going to end up paying through the nose for that. But if it's designed to create a situation that is mass incitement, and it's very clear. You see, there is the rule of law, and there's a rule by law. You see what I mean? The rule of law is an impersonal law that essentially it cuts across. And there's nobody who's above the law and nobody who's below the law.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So, and there's a rule by law. You then begin looking for certain small elements within the law itself to use without comprehensively going to the
fullness of the law.
The fullness of the law itself and the object and the spirit of the framers of that particular law. Always when you are talking about a law,
yes.
you go back to what was the intention of the framers and what was it supposed to cure. If somebody now goes out there and has a lot of issues against me as Farah,
yes,
I'm a bit lost if that is going to be because he has abused me as a person in my public office as the former speaker, and say that he is rough, he has misused his authority, he has done ABCD. Look, that cannot be a hate speech in my opinion. But then the veracity and the truthfulness of what he has said itself is as a defamation can always be taken to court, and that person the courts will definitely give you awards if he's not able to prove exactly what he has said.
Let me bring in Anthony. Anthony, you have heard the conversation. Welcome to Tipping Point. You've heard the conversation. You've heard what Farah is saying. You hear what Dr. Makori is saying. What do you make of what has happened the last few days?
I think, first of all, thank you for having me. What we need to really appreciate is that beyond the legalistic language, beyond what is written on paper, beyond, the application of the law as different players would want to interpret it, they are people. They are human beings who are directly affected by our actions or inactions. And therefore, I think what must guide us beyond the terminologies, because I don't think even just going by what we've experienced right now, it's very difficult to find Kenyans agreeing on what the letter, the spirit of the law speaks to these issues of the tensions that you're trying to address in respect to what Johana Ngeno is accused of doing. Because NCIC will tell you that this is our position, this is the law. But you see, again, you'll meet somebody else somewhere saying that why is it that it's applicable today? Does it mean that it's not been alive over the years? So I think one of the challenges that we are confronted with, and what I read of this, is that there's a culture that we have entertained, and that culture has been growing.
Which is this culture?
A culture of impunity, such that when you're in a position of power or privilege, you can get away with words that are perceived insightful, with a conduct that appears to incite people to act in a certain fashion. And for as long as you can be able to, manipulate the system, the judicial system, you can always get away. And that is why some people from now outside this legalistic language will tell you that the dilemma in Kenya is that the law is being applied selectively. That is why, if you look at the defense of Ngenos and Kinasudis and the likes, the defense is, why are you looking at us now? There are people who've conducted themselves in the same manner previously, or even worse, and nothing has been done. So I think the challenge even towards Danvers and the NCIC Commission is that if they must arise to the occasion and they truly want to live by the spirit of the law, so that in the event you want to give a definition, because at the end of the day, whatever Farah says, whatever Danvers says, the only arbiter that can be able to establish whether whichever side makes sense is the court. When you bring it before the court and the court determines that actually there was a violation of a specific section of the law, and this violation, these are the consequences. But as long as that is not seen, or if it's seen, it is only seen to take effect in people of a lower cadre within the societal setup, then you can easily say that this is not even just a legal issue. It goes beyond the legal issue into cultural issues. What kind of a culture are we trying to breed? That we can entertain situations of incitement, and we get away because we have a political language to cover a mistake.
Let me, because you have touched on NCIC and selective application of the law, let me bring in Danvers. Danvers, do you feel, as NCIC, this is not the first time I'm hearing this, that NCIC and the government and the machines that be, they use law selectively, and especially to people that are deemed against the government? As NCIC, what do you feel about this?
Well, it's not the first time we've done that either. But I'd like to people, when they have perception, when you say something, you prove with evidence. Because I recall just a few months ago, NCIC actually did arrest and did bring a charge against the senator of Narok, and he's deemed to be on the opposite side of Mheshimiwa Ngeno. So that's clear proof. We have a number of cases right now, some of them which I can mention because they are investigations of people actually who are on the opposite side of Mheshimiwa Ngeno, for lack of a better word. So we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot when you arrest or you charge, somebody's charged. They'll say, well, how comes the other person is getting charged? Well, you cannot justify a wrong by another wrong. Just because somebody is doing something wrong and you're doing wrong doesn't mean what you're doing is right. So that logic is neither here nor there. Because the fact is what he said was so wrong that even the deputy president came and condemned it. Even leaders from his side, Caleb Kositai, Kipchumba Murkomen, they all say that was wrong. So I just have an issue here that even leaders on that side say, you know what, actually that guy crossed the line. So how comes then that is an issue? Now we've arrested before many leaders even in this country and charged and brought a charge sheet against them. Now whether the court convicts or not, that's upon the court, and that's beyond our mandate. Ours is to investigate, is to arrest, and then we bring the charge sheet to the DPP, and then he decides whether there is merit or not. And in this case, the DPP decided that there is merit enough for it to be. But let me just say this.
Hold still, Danvers. I want to bring in a clip of what the environment, the CS environment, Keriako Tobiko said. And Lynette, my director, if you can play that clip. Okay.
Awe na adabu na mheshimu rais wa Kenya hii. Na hata huyo mkubwa wake ni karani wa rais.
Farah, you have heard what the CS environment, Keriako Tobiko, said. And the clip is longer, and of course you've heard it. Yeah. What do you make of those sentiments? Do you feel there were aspects of a language that was not deemed of a CS?
No. You see, let me tell you what he. If you go out there and tell me that Farah Maalim, the former deputy speaker, or if I'm a member of parliament that time, you better watch the way he behaves and the way he talks. And you see, I mean, those things. That's normal in life. In politics, that's quite normal. The only difference is that, I don't see anything wrong with what he has said. If it lacks a little bit of decorum and it's not that polished itself, it happens to be the nature of politics in this country.
The nature of politics. Tanga is saying that that was hate speech.
No, it's not hate speech, because I don't think even what Ngeno said is hate speech, in my opinion. I don't know if you get my line of argument.
I get.
Yeah, my line of argument is that, look, if you tell me right now, where Farah, hiyo pesa sio mama yako, I don't call that hate speech. And it happened. I mean, Honorable Duale, and I don't see, okay, it's the decorum is not very good, and it's not language befitting of a leader. But then you go back to the books right now, the law is there. The law is going to prosecute real offenses. And hiyo pesa sio mama yako is not an offense. You tell me what offense it is. To incite to which community against which community, which race against which race, which ethnicity, which religion. Because the whole idea is that religion, ethnicity, region, nationality, you cannot say all the Chinese in this country are bad. That's hate speech. You see what I mean? Because you intend to have violence visited upon this. Yes, cause harm to them. But if you talk to an individual or you talk, look, I have all the respect for Mama Ngina Kenyatta, and I would never do that myself. But then, whether it constitutes a hate speech, no, I don't think it constitutes hate speech. Do I like the way they are becoming desperate and dropping in these kind of things, tanga? No. But it's costing them votes. That's the most important thing. You cannot police morality to that extent. You understand my point?
Policing morality.
You can't police morality and say, and again, because of the fact that, now, let me tell you one thing. The law, there's a rule by law and rule of law. A rule by law is when you're looking for, certain, very shady areas in the law itself so that you can use it against somebody. Because the person giving orders itself or the person who is executing that is trying to maybe keep his job. You see what I mean? Now, just because it is the president and the president's family, in this case, he should have left it, in my opinion, we should have just left it for the Kenyans to judge on that.
All
And
right.
that will not take them anywhere.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more, and I'll be asking you, you are the CEO of Young Parliamentarians. Do you feel like Farah is saying that they are using a language that is unbecoming? And for young people who are looking upon them, what does this mean? We'll be talking about that in a short while. Talk to us on 22999, 22999. Will the arrest of politicians help curb hate speech? Talk to us. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. We'll be back in a short while. All right, and welcome back to Tipping Point. My name is Frederick Mwitiriri. In studio, I have Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker and MP Lagdera. I've got Anthony Buluma, CEO, Young Parliamentarians Association. And I've got Dr. Danvas Makori, NCIC Commissioner. We are discussing hate speech and 2022 politics. We'll be discussing that in a short while. Your SMSs are coming in fast. What does NCIC do 247? I'll be asking that to Danvas Makori. The law has been deemed to be okay when broken by those it favors. Let us not bend it when it favors one side of the political divide. Andrew Shonko, thank you. Arresting them will not help at all, because this is a form of intimidation, which cannot work at all. Peter from Kandara. Hi, Emily from Mombasa. Thank you for your program. And straight to you, Anthony. Young parliamentarians, when they were being elected in 2017, they look like the hope of this country. We have the likes of Kinababu Owino, we have the likes of MP Langata, we have the likes of Ishongwa, the MP Ishongwa from Kikuyu constituency. By and large, do you feel that young parliamentarians, because you are the lead of such a group, they have done what we elected them? The likes of Kina Johnson Sakaja, who is the chairman of this particular grouping.
Yeah, I think before I get into that, I just want to inform my good brother, Danvas, who's as young as I am, that it doesn't harm to accept correction and other divergent opinion. Because I think NCIC has really been on the defense most of the time. Every time you point out these weaknesses, I don't know why they take it like it's personal. Whereas they are called upon to actually serve the interest of the larger community of Kenya.
Yes.
And I think for NCIC to be able to grow, a lot of Kenyans had put their faith on this particular body to have capacity to arbitrate, to solve some of these problems that we are dealing with. But that is not the case. And that's why we are saying the selective application of the law will always give way for the likes of Ngeno, the Sudis and whatnot to get away with it. I don't want to even appear like I'm encouraging what Ngeno is doing. In fact, we condemn it in the strongest terms possible. But the point is, beyond Ngeno, can we entertain this debate in
Why
a more...
Why do you condemn it? Because Farah is saying he doesn't see anything wrong with that.
Because the very fact that it has attracted nationwide attention and creating some level of reaction across the country is a problem. Because look at the demonstrations all over the country. You know, Kenyans coming out to say that we do not identify with this action is something that should tell you that it was off. And for me, that in itself means that he was off. But now coming back to your question about the young parliamentarians, I want you to know that a lot of these young parliamentarians have been elected to a political environment that has been there since we gained independence.
So there's no change we are going to see anytime soon.
Wait, let me just get there. So when they get to parliament, they're introduced into a political culture, because when you're campaigning, probably you're campaigning with a certain message and hope that I am going to be different when I get into that house. That things are going to be different completely because we're coming in with fresh blood and all this conversation. But when you get there, then you realize, oh, this is how the world looks like in this part of the world. So a good chunk of them sometimes have the temptation to fall into these traps because, and that's what we were discussing when we were offline with Farah, who's an elder politically. And he was pointing out that some of the problems that bedevil this country sometimes are political in nature, because somebody like Ngeno could actually be securing his second term, you know, in the next election. And that's a culture that we have bred in this country. So the young parliamentarians sometimes are almost falling victim to this kind of a political situation. That's why As an association, we have introduced certain measures to try and cushion them.
Yes.
Like, for example, we have a leadership program that is ongoing today called the Leading Young. We have assigned each young parliamentarian a life coach. It's something that is totally new in this part of the world. But a life coach helps you to stay focused in terms of your thinking as a leader. And these people have been working with them throughout their journey, and this program just started last year.
Yes.
So we are hoping that it will be able to start bearing fruit, and you see a different breed of politicians, because,
Yes.
like I told you, our problem is not the existence of law and the legalistic discussions that we want to have. Our problem is systemic. And
Hold
a
still
lot of what you're
on
dealing
systemic.
with today.
Hold still.
Yeah.
Because you've talked, there's something that Farah said when we were offline, the independence of NCIC and other commissions of the government. And I want to throw this to Danvas. Danvas, you've been accused, NCIC has been accused, not the first time, not the second time, nor even the 10th time, that the independence of such a commission like yours has been taken away by the government, that you're not supposed to be the spokespersons of the government. You're supposed to be independent in thought and even in action. And this would culminate into convictions that you'd say, this guy spoke this and this is what was done. But we haven't seen that. What do you say of this?
Thanks again. I think, Buluma, I was not being I am not being defensive. I was stating the fact that we've arrested somebody on the other side. But just to answer this question here quickly, and you didn't give me time to finish what I was trying to say earlier, was that we are independent factually, and there's not one time we've received instructions or otherwise to do something because we understand the critical nature of our work. We do a lot of arbitration. We come into conflict areas, ethnic groups which are fighting. We cannot afford to be seen or to even to take sides. This comes when something happens like this, we'll be accused. But let's not forget the person. This particular case, he was arrested by the ECI, charged by the DPP. They just used our act, and just to be. But for us as a commission, we are absolutely independent. We have to be independent, purely because our nature. The nature of our work demands we be independent. That what has been accused, oftentimes or not, is by the same people who, on the other side, will accuse the same way. Of not taking action.
Can I?
So the question is,
go ahead, Farah.
You see, Danvas.
Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Because first of all, even Mheshimiwa Farah, what Mheshimiwa Farah said was not even accurate, because the law is very clear. If you use insultive, threatening, abusive language, it is hate speech. That is exactly definition, classic text. That's exactly what he did. But for us, let me just put it this way. I actually am glad that my friend Buluma has condemned this. So it shows you there's something wrong what he said. So we will do this, and we will not allow, and I'm going to state this categorically, any politician, whatever like this.
To incite violence against somebody is a crime.
No. Mheshimiwa Farah.
Just a moment. Let me explain. Let me finish.
Mheshimiwa Farah, you are former Speaker of Parliament, and you know how the law is. It is very clear. It's not to incite to violence. It is not incite to violence. It is what you say. So if you use abusive, threatening language, which he did, that is classic definition. Let's not split hairs, Mheshimiwa Tafadhali. Okay, it's not to incite to violence.
Let's hear from the elder.
You know. Let me tell you one thing. Incitement to violence is a crime against an individual. Incitement to violence against a class of people or a group of people is where the hate speech comes in. You see what I mean? If I tell your colleague right now, go and club Waitiriri when he goes out of it, that's not hate speech. You see what I mean? If I tell him, look, this man anakudarau, kwa hivyo sort him out when he comes out of that is not. Hang on a minute. You see, just hold still, Danvas. And then the other thing is, Danvas US is an independent body, and I am happy with the fact that you had absolutely no role in the what do you call the arrest and the imprisonment and the charging of this particular guy here now. But for you right now to publicly say yes, you agree with what the DPP did. I thought as an independent body you would hold your horse back and take a bit of time before you can come to that kind of a conclusion, so that you have the dignity and the respect of the entire across the board. Now let me just now draw a small parallel towards this.
Yes.
You have President Trump in the US. People call him an imbecile, they call him a dimwit, they call him somebody who needs to be taken to court. He does not deserve even to be a president. He's got a mental faculty that's diminished. I mean, people have used every conceivable word, but then a direct attack on him or his family for that matter. Now, that does not become an incitement. An incitement to and hatred is, the hate speech is very clear. It is towards
Inciting a community.
No, it is towards a group of people or a class of people. If you say now, let's get rid of all these rich people in the country here, the bloodsuckers and everything else, and you give, that's hate speech. For sure, you are now targeting a class of people. Or you say all the lawyers in this country are criminals. Let's do this or that to them all. Or all the doctors are this. I mean, that's a class of people. And a community is a community. An association is an association. But an individual, I am outraged at the personal level, to the extent to which a very old grandmother to many people, who we all hold her with a lot of respect because of the fact that she's been part of the history of this country,
Yes.
should be dragged into these things. But does that constitute a hate speech? No, it does not constitute a hate speech. Does that constitute a public outrage in the minds of all Kenyans?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Do you have to take them to court for that? No, you don't have to. You allow what do you call
freedom of speech.
They will pay for it through the common, But if you take them to court right now, you clearly are turning them into some kind of a heroes.
Yeah.
Heroes in this.
Some
and
of
the,
the
and the other
SMSs,
thing, the other
yes.
thing, let me tell you.
Yes.
One time, the Honorable Duale, and in all fairness to him, and I had no problem also to see that as a hate speech. I never saw it as a hate speech. Said he personally, Mama Akubana. You know what I mean? Okay, because Ruto's mother is our mother, all of us. We were not happy with it. but does it constitute an offense?
an individual?
And I apologize on his behalf because he's my cousin. He's actually my relative. You know what I mean? We have a blood relationship. But then does it constitute a hate speech? No. No, it doesn't constitute a hate speech. Does it constitute a crime for him to be taken to court as an incitement or whatever it is? Or no. But for a defamation, yes, it's a defamation.
Let me read some of the texts that are coming in.
Yes.
The law, Timo here watching from Nairobi, the law in Kenya is the injustice that God will judge our country for. Dr. David Njoroge Evans, you are saying. Timo here from Nairobi, at the end of the day, those utterances were reckless and hurt people, whether the first family or the public at large. And it shows the moral caliber of our leaders. You say. Good evening, Fred. Iman James following the Tipping Point show from Mombasa. Trust me, politicians know what they're doing. They got nothing to offer for this country, so that wanatafuta mimi ili wa Kenya waongelee, and you never know, maybe it's stage managed. Let every one of us remember the judgment of God for any irresponsible decision made or done by any of us in this country. Talk to us on 22999. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are live, we are streaming live. Talk to us. I'll be reading some of the comments in a short while. But let me join in. Anthony, I've heard what Buluma is saying here. But we're looking at 2022, the politics of 2022. And before we get to that, this is what Deputy President William Ruto said today in Kisii. Leader, if you have that.
Waheshimiwe, askari afanye kazi ya askari, ama namna gani? Machief na provincial administration wafanye kazi yao. Nimekuja sijakuja? Mumenikaribisha hamujanikaribisha? Hebu tuwaonyeshe hasla kwa area.
Deputy President William Ruto was in Kisii today. This is the first trip that he's taking since COVID-19 happened in the country. And believe you me, we were told to stay home, sanitize, and we were told make sure there is social distancing. What did you see in Kisii? Are we on our way to 2022 politics?
Yeah, campaigns have started. I mean, you saw
Long time back.
Raila in Taita Taveta, Ruto in Kisii. I think the president makes stopovers.
You see them.
Yeah,
this is Kisii today.
And I think even Kenyans are already tired about these things of curfew and lockdown. In fact, if I was to advise government, I would tell them just open the country, let people go do their businesses, and we go on with our life. Because I mean, we can't live in a country that is full of pretense. But again, on a second thought, the unfortunate thing is that we're already warming up into a political atmosphere at the expense of many programs that should be the government should be implementing. So you can be sure that we'll be treating ourselves to, a lot of political engagements and interactions for the next 1 year minus development. And I don't know how we will ever get our country to a situation where we can decide after an election, we suspend political noise making up until the appropriate time.
Is that possible, Farah? Is that possible?
It's a difficult thing to do.
You see, let me tell you one thing.
Yes.
Freedom of movement itself and the freedom of association are guaranteed under our Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Over and above that, they are there in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They are there in the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. Both of them are UN what they call documents. And and essentially, it's okay. Freedom of expression itself is not open-ended. You cannot engage in a hate speech and call it freedom of speech. But for all I care myself and all I see right now, I do not see anything that constitutes a hate speech in this country. As to association, whether the deputy president is going to move around in this country without masks and everything else and everywhere, well, that was done by our groups, those of us who are not in Tanga. When people meet at Wally's place, people meet in everywhere. You know what I mean? So
people have been meeting throughout.
People have been meeting throughout.
So we do away with COVID-19 and say,
no, people have been doing, and I'm sure there's already the numbers are coming down, and there's herd immunity in that, and I can assure. I was in Garissa myself the other day, for example.
Yes.
I was in Garissa, and I was welcomed by my own people out there. And I didn't even have an opportunity to lift my own face mask. They lifted me. They were all over me. Nobody was wearing a face mask. You see what I mean? Nobody was wearing a face mask.
So you're saying this COVID-19 is for the commoners?
All this,
we should just go back to our lives.
All the talk of, COVID-19 is only here in Nairobi, let me be honest with you. and Mombasa, a few urban centers, a few major urban centers.
Yes.
The rest of the country doesn't give a damn about it.
But in Nairobi,
they're more or less like... I think they took a chapter from Magufuli because Magufuli is just next door here.
Danvas, your commission, NCIC, seemingly it comes on board every time we have an election. That is the feeling of most Kenyans, and maybe some of us in this studio, that your NCIC come on board whenever there are elections, and that is when we see them. For the last 3 years, we haven't seen much action from NCIC. What do you say of this?
Well, let me just say this. We have 16 mandates. A lot of our work is peace building, is reconciliation. We've been on the ground for months in Marsabit, in Narok, in Isiolo. And our work is really behind the scenes. It's diplomacy, it's negotiations, bringing people together. We work with elders, young people. So, kwa mashinani huko, you don't have the glare of media. So peace building is a tedious and it's a process. So we actually, that's our main work. Also, of course, we are a neutral arbiter when it comes to this process. We are like the referee in a game, and the games have started, as we can see. And ours is to referee, is to make sure the players play according to the rules, and the Kenyans will decide who the winner is. Ours is to make sure all players play according to the rules that are established already. But our work mostly is in peace building, is in civil education, and uko kwa mashinani in Turkana, in West Pokot, in Samburu, in Marsabit, and in those places where sometimes they don't think they live in Kenya. So we bring these communities that are working together. So that's why we don't have to pronounce ourselves here, but it so lends it's common sense, because temperatures are rising. And we are the referees. Of course, we have to be in the game. A referee is in the game. So when the game starts, we have to be there and say, you know what, guys, this is the law. Get your act together. Don't do this. Don't do this. That's what is happening. But to an extent,
for the benefit,
you're actually right.
For the benefit.
To an extent, actually, I don't want to totally disagree with you. Yes, there's that element of yes, in the past that has been the case. Okay, in the past many years that's been the case. But the new set of commissioners, which we just came in, we are set to actually change that so that there's a continuity of our work, so that no matter what, there's always peace and cohesion in our country, whether there's elections or not.
Let me ask you this question, and we are headed to 2022. How do we curb hate speech? There are some people who've said that what Ngeno and Oscar Sudi said the last few days, this can amount to bringing out those emotions, 2007 emotions, just before 2007, 2006, towards the end of 2007, just before elections. And this is what was seen. How do we go about making sure that we don't have such before 2022?
Look, the way I see it right now is a very acrimonious divorce within the Jubilee itself. And when people were bedfellows and they were bosom buddies and very close together and fought a lot of wars together, and one section feels betrayed by the other and the other section feels it cannot trust them with the leadership anymore. This is their own things. We go through that in ODM, we go through that in Wiper, we go through that in all the other parties. Allow them to go through that in Jubilee. And when we will also do our own mathematics. We will also do our own coalition building, one way or the other, and let the best team win come the next election. So allow them to, when you have a wife and a husband having a war, if one of them has got to cry in the dead of the night or cry outside in the open, it's their business. What do you care about yourself? Because that doesn't concern you at all. In any case, nobody has called you to come and arbitrate within Jubilee itself to bring his number 2 and number 1 together, or the two comes together, whether you call them Tanga or Keleweke. Let them have their divorce. It happens in everywhere. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell Danvas is that, Danvas is, I know him, he's somebody I've met on a number of occasions, and I have a lot of respect for him. But Danvas, when they were prosecuting and taken to court Ledama or Lekina, he was not on the opposite side of
things. He was handshake side.
He was
handshake side.
He was handshake side. No. On the issue, what you call the facts in issue, the issue on which he was taken to court had to do with the ranches that the Maasais feel that they're entitled. Once the Mzungus left the Maasais, these things have got to revert back. But right now are in the hands, or rather in the hands of people in the establishment. So it's the government, basically, that is the powers that be that occasioned him to be taken to court. So for him to tell us that this guy was on the side of the government, but it's like he was fighting some common guys on the other side, we found him wrong. No,
on the ranches.
It is on the ranches
who
basically own the ranches, and he's feeling that these ranches should have reverted back to the Maasais, and these are people in the establishment. So for him to say that Ngeno and Ledama, that we are cutting both ways. No, you're cutting in only one way.
Let me bring in Buluma.
They're only doing the bidding for the government, which is very, very disturbing. And it's an independent body. It's supposed to be an independent body.
All right, beautiful.
And why we created all these independent offices, the spirit and the object of that, when we almost became a failed state, is to have a civil servants or a bureaucracy that works regardless of what the political situation is and how politicians work together or fail to work together.
Anthony, in 30 seconds, because my director is telling me my time is up. In 30 seconds, what do you feel? We are headed to 2022 and politics have started. Like you've said, we open up the country. How do we make sure that hate speech is not the core thing that is being preached? Because, like he's saying, there's a divorce in Jubilee. How do we make sure that we hold the country together towards 2022?
I think first of all is for us to appreciate that this country belongs to all of us. And when it burns every one of us. That's one. Secondly, I think Kenyans must really appreciate that there's a common phrase that politicians are fond of saying. There are no permanent foes or enemies in the political arena. And that should tell you something. That even the discussions you're having here, we could be thinking Deputy President Ruto and President Uhuru are pulling in different directions, only for them to actually find another convergence. and we witness the mother of all handshakes between Ruto and Raila, midwifed by none other than the president. What I'm saying is that what Governor Uasin Gishu once said, hii siasa usiweke kwa roho sana na makasiriko mingi.
All right.
Treat it with each day as it goes. And then Kenyans must also remember that the significant problems we are facing in our country
Yes.
will never be sorted with the thinking of 2008, 1992, and you can keep counting.
Thank
Moving
you.
ahead, we must
Thank
be
you.
able to adopt new strategies. And that's why I was challenging my brother Danvas, that now that he has an opportunity to engineer the kind of change that we want to see in the NCIC,
Yes.
don't be on the defense. Acknowledge that this is a challenge, this is a weakness, but moving forward, these are measures that can be taken, you know?
Thank
because
you.
we've discussed just the political class. We have not discussed the kind of discussions that are going on social media.
Yes.
You can imagine the nightmare there.
Yes.
In 2008, these things were not as popular. In 2022, you can be sure social media would be the face of it. Before we watched this rally in Kisii here on TV, most of us had interacted with this on Facebook. So you can imagine in 2022,
All right,
what will
thank you.
happen.
Thank you so very much, Anthony. I have so many SMSs that I would have loved to read. There are so many, they are coming in thick from Facebook, Twitter, and even on YouTube. Asanteni sana. I was with Farah Malim, the former Deputy Speaker, and of course MP Lagdera. I was with the CEO, Young Parliamentarians Association, Anthony Buluma, and of course NCIC Commissioner. And thank you for your time. Danvas Makori, thank you so very much for your time, coming to us live from his very own house. We appreciate. Until the next Thursday, we'll be discussing Face Politics 2022. Here we come. My name is Frederick Mwitiriri. Do have yourself a good night.